to order. Welcome to meeting number 16 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. Our study pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on October 27th, 2020. The committee is resuming its study on supports and services to veterans, caregivers, and families. Welcome to all of the witnesses who have taken time to join us today. I will introduce them now from Whelan Psychological Services, Inc., Dr. John Whelan, lead psychologist. As appearing as individuals, we have Mr. Sean Bruyere, Captain Retired, Miss Tracy Lee Evanson, Dr. Heather McKinnon, Jerry White, Lieutenant Retired, and each of you will have 5 minutes for opening remarks, and after we'll proceed with rounds of questions. I'll give you a signal when you have 1 minute left, and don't worry, a minute goes by really quickly, doesn't go by very quickly. You got lots of time when you have a whole minute left, so no need to rush. To start off today, we're going to get going with Dr. Whelan. The next 5 minutes are all yours, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation. My comments reflect our clinical work with serving a retired military, along with some of my research at Mount St. Vincent University. I served in the Navy for about 9 years, then as a psychologist at the military base in Halifax for another 10, and then headed off to lead a clinic of 5 psychologists for 18 years. During that time, we assessed and treated several thousand members and veterans for OSI, primarily operational PTSD and substance abuse. About 40% could be classed as highly invested in treatment and recovery, did their best to stay connected with their families. The remaining 60% were more ambivalent about the need for treatment, and about 1/3 of those were just primarily men who were intensely angry with military and veterans affairs and were not invested in treatment. So when it comes to veteran caregivers, they're primarily women spouses and partners in our experience. So understanding their needs, I think, requires a re-examination of our veteran-centric approaches that focus on symptoms and trauma triggers that position family members as passive participants. Their primary role is to attend to the mental emotional needs of injured veterans. Caregiver spouses are expected to reduce stress and manage potential triggers, primarily dealing with Veterans Affairs Canada or keeping children quiet in the home, which is a continuation at some level of the strength behind the uniform promoted in the military, and is a belief held among many male veterans. It is premised on taking for granted women's roles to manage the home front. Most of these caregivers are stoic women. Canadian family and military researchers have cataloged the extraordinary efforts they expend in seeking out formal and informal supports. They seek out treatment options for their partners while working outside the home often, cleaning, managing bills, cooking, caring for children. Among those we saw, sleep disturbances, anxiety, and being physically and emotionally exhausted were quite common. They placed their own needs, often second nature. In our clinic, we routinely asked to interview veteran caregivers during assessment and treatment planning, and sometimes met them privately. Despite fears of creating issues for veteran claims, we heard often about veterans withholding information about their volatility, or spending their days drinking, or being disengaged from family life and responsibilities. These caregivers are often quite frustrated with treatment approaches that excludes them and families. We also received many phone calls from distressed partners who were not, whose partners were not clients of Veterans Affairs. So they are left out despite their obvious needs. Military veterans are under continual scrutiny, yet we lack a parallel framework to assess the consequences of military OSIs on family members, including vicarious and secondary trauma. In my view, the standing model of veteran as casualty excludes the entire family system, which can be a casualty of military service. Veteran partners receive little direct practical help in managing their day-to-day lives with former military men with mental health problems. A persistent fear among many of these centers around veteran self-harm, should they decide to leave the relationship or even leave the home for errands or to attend work. At other times, Veterans would simply leave the home for days following conflicts or disagreements, to be alone, to visit buddies, and then show up again unannounced, often throwing families into disarray. This lack of predictability is a formula for all kinds of mental health issues. So in considering the supports needed for veteran caregivers, it is important to acknowledge that spouses, mothers, adult daughters are often given de facto responsibility to manage veterans between scheduled mental health appointments. In our experience, this vigilance and monitoring role is also handed to adolescents and older children as well. Yet none of these people have a say in treatment decisions. They are the ones who call authorities or military bodies to help manage crises. They talk down veterans from nightmares. They contend with drunken tirades. And they're expected to be on guard for suicidal indicators. Many partners describe having an additional child at home in terms of reminding the partners to eat, to bathe, to take medications, or to organize their days. So despite our public statements to the contrary, veteran families are often invisible linchpins to veteran recovery status. As noted by military family researcher Deborah Norris, veteran and family well-being is dynamic, bi-directional process. Family members have a central role in veteran well-being and vice versa. That far exceeds the effects of medication and individually focused therapies. In some, no matter the specific individual veteran-centric treatment, it is a social and family context that matters most to veteran welfare and progress. In Canada, we have not explored this intersection of family mental health and family involvement, investment in treatment as requisites of veteran health. It is my view that entire families are often casualties of military service, especially in the case of service-related mental health problems. In keeping with the recent Veteran Ombudsman's report, families and not just veterans require assessment of needs and ongoing case management supports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Whelan. And now over for 5 minutes, Captain Retired Sean Bruyere. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. I feel sincere gratitude at being here. Your study, the accompanying report, and the hope for changes will not reverse the tragedies and neglect of the past, but your work can change the future. We as a nation can make up for years of neglect of the most vital, the most critical pillar to veterans' well-being, their families. I would like to first put on the record that I have gathered evidence regarding the retaliation against our son's care following articles I authored critiquing Pension for Life. This evidence provides a much needed insight into the culture of senior managers and their hindering of frontline workers' ability to be compassionate. The evidence is not political, but cultural. Unacceptable behavior by senior bureaucrats is endured through various governments. Senior officials will likely petition you not to invite me back. That should be every reason to justify why I humbly request you would. I recommend that Alan Hunter, my advocate, as well as Tina Fitzpatrick, join me to speak to these cultural issues. Veterans and families are treated as both separate and unequal entities for policy purposes, in spite of clear guiding statements to the contrary. Families are relegated not to the backseat, but often running behind the last car of a meandering train of dizzyingly complex policies for veterans with an opaque bureaucracy as conductor. However, families and veterans cannot be separated or diminished in this manner. The veteran is embedded, integral, and vital to the family, just as each and every other family member is critical to the family and its well-being. A bridge cannot function if even one support is damaged. The family, everyone is healthy. Research has told us this for decades. Quite simply, chronic illness not only causes emotional distress in the entire family, but impairs the family's ability to support the patient. Families with one member suffering mental health issues suffer the greatest. The negative impacts on the psychological health of the family members are sometimes larger than the direct psychological impacts on the patient. Canada has more than 35,000 veterans and RCMP members suffering a psychiatric disability resulting from their service, 25,000 with a PTSD diagnosis. Each household member should be given access to VAC-funded mental health care in their own right and of their own accord. How many tragedies could be avoided? It is cruel for families and veterans, for that matter, to be put on a waiting list for a case manager, suffering while a rehabilitation plan is developed, in the hope that they might receive mental health care. Families also need a unique VAC identification to access services of their own accord. The most disabled veterans already have their earning potential paralyzed at a lower rate when they served. The inability of spouses to pursue their career to the fullest while they must care for veteran and children further impacts earning potential. Why then are only 1,200 spouses receiving the caregiver recognition benefit when there are approximately 9,000 spouses caring for veterans who are permanently incapacitated, or 14,000 spouses caring for veterans with mental illness? But parsimonious programs that discriminate against families have been perennial. Why are non-family members entitled to compensation for escorting a veteran to medical appointments, but families are not? The lack of support for families of veterans with psychological injuries could explain why only 56% of veterans with a mental disability are married or live in common law, as opposed to 71% of Canadians. VAC restricts access to programs for the most vulnerable members of the family, our children. 16 months after VAC spontaneously canceled dependent care for our 6-year-old son, VAC fabricated new criteria to justify canceling that care. The program will only pay for basic needs, refusing to recognize the special needs of children. In a glaring omission, the purpose clause of the Veterans Wellbeing Act has no stated obligation to children or dependents while the veteran is still alive. The wording of the dependent care policy for veterans on medical rehabilitation is generous and compassionate. Decisions need to be broad and flexible and holistic, addressing unique needs and unique circumstances of the veteran. One would assume that having a dependent with special needs would be a unique circumstance. However, when veterans' illnesses create the inevitable emotional and psychological burdens upon children, VAC has circled the wagons against these children. VAC will not support any care between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. on school days, even when the public system cannot, as if a child's suffering somehow follows a schedule. Internal emails show a callous insensitivity. Quote, how realistic would it be for rehab to swoop in and care for a child when a child is unexpectedly sick? Not likely. It would need to be predictable. And, quote, part of the intent here is to avoid fostering dependency on a short-term program. Perhaps it escaped the observations of policymakers isolated in Charlottetown, away from the daily struggles of veterans and their families. Dependents are dependent. No attempt to save the Crown money can force a 3-year-old to grow up, the missing parts of a brain injury to grow back, or PTSD to spontaneously heal. But there is a bigger perceptual barrier deeply infecting VAC. They interpret programs in a manner that sees disabled veterans and especially their families as being liabilities, unknowingly dependent on VAC. Children are haphazardly added to incidental expenses along with mileage and parking. Perhaps this explains why no veterans were granted dependent care for the families in the first 4 years of the program. Or of almost 20,000 veterans on medical rehabilitation, only 106 were able to receive dependent care from 2014 to 2019 for a total cost of less than 1 year's salary of a cabinet or deputy minister. I provided you with a list of recommendations in consideration of your report. I sincerely thank you for all your time, energy, and caring for families.
Thank you, sir. And now over to Ms. Evanson for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Lee Evanson, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and to give you a small glimpse into my life as a common law partner of a veteran. I thought the easiest way to explain who I am and what we go through is to give you a sample day in our household. It's Friday, and my boys are visiting for the weekend. We leave Belleville and take the 401 or sometimes Highway 2 to the 35-115 and head north. Kevin won't take the 401 if he can help it. It is riddled with triggers and causes stress. He then insists on taking the 407 toll highway. I cringe at the expense as we must take it to Brampton. Kevin proudly served as a medic, but he was also a paramedic for many years, with the 401 being one of his routes. The triggers are everywhere. We pick up the boys and head home. A 2.25-hour one-way trip can take anywhere from 2 3/4 to 4 hours. We get home, Kevin is both mentally and physically exhausted, and he goes to bed. It's Saturday morning. Kevin gets up, follows the same routine every day. He's up, his mind, everyone else should be too. The kids wake up, eat breakfast, head back downstairs to play Call of Duty. One turns it up for the full experience, the other jumps up and turns it down. Not too loud, think about Kevin. It will trigger him. They give up and move to a movie. One turns it up and the other turns it down. Think of Kevin. It will trigger him. While this is happening, Kevin goes back to bed. He's still exhausted from the drive the day before, so the house must be quiet. Our neighbors let the dogs out and they talk to them, and it doesn't really go anywhere. We call the police, they visit, the dogs stop for about 30 minutes, and then they start again. Kevin loses it, gets angry, stomps around, threatens to go up there. I am the buffer. I try to calm him. I try to quiet his mind. I am the go-between. I talk to the neighbors. I talk to the police. And now I'm mentally exhausted. I ask my son to mow the lawn. He starts the lawnmower. It backfires. The smell of gas fills the air. Kevin jumps up. He panics. The sounds and the smells. You see, Kevin was the first plane that arrived into Haiti after the earthquake. The smells he experienced will never leave him. The simple activity of someone else cutting the grass can send him into a tizzy for days. My daughter puts a pizza in the oven. Cheese drops onto the element. It starts to smoke. The smoke detectors go off. She panics, opens the windows, turns on the fans. Kevin freezes, panics, and scrambles. The smell of burning sends his PTSD into overdrive. Then, all of a sudden, a multitude of weapons are being discharged, and it's the same neighbor. Kevin tailspins, he panics. It truly sounds like a war movie. I call the neighbor and ask them to please stop. We have a farm and it's all right, they say. My clipped answer is Kevin is a veteran with PTSD. This is a neighborhood. There are homes with children and animals around you. You have acreage, not an active farm. I understand they want to have fun, but that's what firing ranges are for. It happened daily for months. Kevin is absolutely done. My boys are confused. I am exhausted. My daughter heads to her friends to get away from all the noise and the distractions so she can do her homework and attend her Queen's University classes in peace, as the same neighbor is now driving a super loud dirt bike up and down the driveway. I make supper, we sit down as a family, that goes well until the dogs start barking again. Kevin does the dishes and heads to bed. I go downstairs and play video games with my boys. The TV is on mute. We pop in a movie and watch it on low. The boys go to bed. I go upstairs and ask myself, what did I get myself into? Honestly, the thought lasts less than a heartbeat. This man has given me and my children everything he possibly can. I crawl into bed, but I don't fall asleep. This is when the night terrors begin. I don't want to sleep to ensure he's safe. The dreams start. He kicks, flails, cries out, screams, grabs, and punches. You get where this is going. So I don't sleep properly. He offers to sleep in another room. No, I need to make sure he's safe. It's time someone was there to protect him. When he turned 65, his take-home monies went from $2,032 to $932. Let me repeat that. He now gets a whopping $932. At 65, 20% is supposed to be deducted from their pre-65 pay. I guess life ends for a veteran at 65. When they need help the most, they get thrown out with the bathwater. He was unceremoniously released from the military because he was considered old. 60 is not old. We are on the phone daily with VAC, the Ombudsman's Office, Human Rights, to try and get straightforward answers. Those answers are rarely given. We receive responses that go in circles, and by the end, we are so confused and frustrated, we cave. We're not uneducated people, but feel that way each and every time we get a response, not an answer. Responses that seem to change like the weatherman's predictions. When we need to make things easier, things are made harder, so much harder. We have figured out that maybe, as a common law partner, I am entitled to his VAC benefits, but not his military benefits. How does that make sense? We found out that if a veteran is not married by the age of 60, any partnership after 60 will not be recognized. Once married, we have a year to submit this paperwork in order for me to be able to get his military benefits, i.e. pension, but we have to pay into it, from what little money we now have coming in. Veterans Affairs returns upwards of $150 million a year to the government. This money could be used to support veterans and their families, no matter what the family unit looks like. They reduce the IRB by 20%, yet give back millions to the government. I have reached out to groups for support, but I'm not married, nor an active servicewoman. I am common law. I don't count. Please know that I'm new to this life, and I wouldn't change it. It would be helpful if there was someone that reached out and said, "Hi, can I help you with anything?" Can I explain anything for you? And if I can't, I will find someone who can. Veterans have to chase people for help, but it isn't help, it's more trouble. They give up. They are tired of being marginalized, cast aside, and forgotten. And as a common law partner, for the most part, I don't even exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing here today with us. Move on quickly here to Dr. Heather McKinnon. The next 5 minutes are yours.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of veterans, caregivers, and families. I would like to start by telling you about myself. I'm a former military medical officer who served in both the regular and reserve forces. I have participated in numerous military operations, both at home and overseas. I have a unique general practice in Halifax, which is composed of former military and RCMP members and their families. I would like to thank Veterans Affairs Canada for the wonderful help and services that are presently provided to our veterans. There are many positive aspects to the programs available to our veterans, and notably for mental health treatment. It is my understanding that veterans' mental health supports are only available to current spouses and their children as long as the veteran gives permission. There are no mental health services for ex-spouses, parents of veterans, and children older than 25 years. Many veterans have been exposed to multiple stressors during their careers. Their spouses and children follow them from base to base, often giving up careers and friends. If a veteran has an occupational stress injury, the family dynamics can be further stressed. I'm a family physician, so I believe the best way I can communicate the issues that I see in my practice is to give examples of how lack of access to mental health care affects spouses, caregivers, children, and ex-spouses. These are not just single cases, but represent multiple examples from the veteran patient population. Veterans' families can be subjected to extreme stressors, not only if a veteran suffers from mental health stressors, but physical and financial stressors. When a marriage breaks down, everyone is a loser. The veteran may be getting mental health services via Veterans Affairs, but the ex-spouse receives no assistance. In this case, it is up to the family physician to help the wife. There are no free mental health counseling services available. Often, former spouses face financial losses, nowhere to live, and can only afford legal aid, which is totally unreliable. Unfortunately, medication dependency, such as benzodiazepines and suicidal ideations, become a major problem. In one case, we asked Veterans Emergency Transition Service Canada, which is Vets Canada, for housing assistance. In another case, the ex-spouse moved from house to house until she became a senior, so that she could get assisted housing. When children are involved, the matter becomes even more complex. Veterans Affairs Canada only provides mental health treatment to family members when the veteran's treatment or rehabilitation plan has established that doing so will achieve a positive outcome for the veteran. The amount of treatment a family member gets varies from case to case. Children over the age of 25 are not eligible for mental health treatment from Veterans Affairs. I have adult children in my practice who have serious mental health issues and are not able to receive treatment. These mental health issues can be traced back to deployments that the fathers made over 25 years ago. One patient is both physically and mentally ill. The fathers have PTSD that arose from these deployments. One child started becoming both physically and mentally ill when the father returned. His mother and he were receiving mental health counseling, which was pulled when the case about the son of a veteran who murdered a police officer was found to be receiving counseling in prison. This caused a review and tightening of the policy. The family has never been able to get further treatment via VAC. Veterans who have an occupational stress injury and other mental health injuries are often very difficult to live with. They become verbally, physically abusive, drink, hide in the basement, and ruminate. The whole family walks on eggshells when the veteran is upset. Veterans who are ill will try to avoid any contact with the outside world. One veteran has multiple cameras outside his house. He is on constant surveillance. One spouse who was not a patient came to see me to try and get her husband to stop verbally abusing her in public. This is difficult to deal with. How do you treat the situation, the wife, the husband, and not trigger further consequences? I wish the spouse could have received mental health services via VAC. One of these situations got very much out of hand with weapons and a 2-day standoff with the police. The situation was diffused with speaking parties. One of the spouses reminded me that when a military member serves, the whole family serves. The veteran says, "These aren't my medals, these are my family's medals." Veterans Affairs has made advances in mental health treatment for veterans and for families of those with OSI injuries. These moves are very important. The only problem here is, how do you get to these services? You need a case manager. How do you get a veteran into an OSI clinic? You need a case manager. I used to be able to call a case manager for help for any veteran, but not anymore. They are a rare breed. If veterans with recognized OSI injuries can get help, what about all of the other veterans' families who don't have a case manager, and what is there to offer their spouses, caregivers, and children who need help? Supports and services, including mental health services for veterans, caregivers, and families, can be done. The system just needs to be tweaked a bit. Mr. Chair, members of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs, thank you for having taken the time to listen to me today. If you have any questions, I will do my very best to answer them.
Thank you very much, Ms. McKinnon. We're now going to our final witness, Lieutenant Retired Jerry White. The next 5 minutes are all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and participate in this standing committee. I don't usually work from notes, and I speak a lot. I speak a lot locally. I started my service. I was sworn into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police on my 19th birthday on the 29th of May, 1974. I served a total of 31 years, initially with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and then I accepted a commission into the Navy, which was the start of some excellent service and some serious trauma altogether. It goes with the job. My treatment, I retired in 2004 after 31 years of service. There are a few people on my computer here who are being vastly underscored, mostly by themselves. My treatment was started by Dr. McKinnon. Dr. McKinnon and former NDP member here, Peter Stauffer, are probably considered the two patron saints of veterans and their families. And I'm not exaggerating. It seems that a great deal of the care that comes to veterans and their families comes after an incident. And we are hip deep in incidents here in Nova Scotia. Portapique impacted on many mounted policemen, some of whom I had trained many years ago. Heidi Burkholter, Heidi Stevenson, I'll tell you how far back we go, was a very good friend of mine. And the names on the wall keep growing, and they shouldn't be. It seems, and it has been my experience, when I served, I was retired, medically released, mind you, after 31 years, as a result of injuries sustained when I was picking children out of a minefield halfway through a UN deployment to the killing fields of Cambodia in 1992. I suppose it bears note that even though that happened on August 14th of 1992, it never came to light until 2002, and that was only because Dr. McKinnon saw a few things that she didn't like, and she started me down a rabbit hole that is perhaps the reason why I'm still alive today. There are all sorts of facilities here in Halifax, and I don't know if it's because I retired as a senior officer or why it would be, but I seem to have better success accessing these facilities and benefits than many other members. If you go onto a Facebook website called UN NATO Veterans Group, I am a member. We get together every Saturday morning here, about 80 of us, for breakfast. And there are only 2 officers in that entire group. I am one of them, and the other is Commander Fred Maggio, who, like Dr. McKinnon, was a very instrumental medical officer in the military here in Halifax. One of the reasons that I offered to join this is because I want to try to address the problem of difficulties with veterans and their families being addressed only after there is an incident. We are not very far from Lionel Desmond's home here. We're 1 hour away from that terrible tragedy. Now, I did not walk in his moccasins, so I have no idea what the situation was, but all of a sudden I hear the same rhetoric over and over again. Where did we go wrong? What did we miss? What could we have done? I will gladly point. My boss at the time, J.R.A. Dallaire, said you should probably go and talk to somebody about this. But in 1992, for those of you with a poor memory, there was such a great stigma attached to mental health issues that nobody ever went forward. They put a piece of rope up around a beam in the basement instead. Okay, and there are still people doing that, and I deal with that every day. My life support system here is my beautiful wife, who, even though she's the one that many mornings gets me out of bed and gets me to take on the world, there are no benefits whatsoever for her. She is 1/5 of my life support system. My daughter and 3 grandchildren are the other. That is what keeps me going. And when things start crossing my mind that I wish wouldn't cross my mind, it is my beautiful wife, Jane, and my grandchildren that pull me back from the precipice. We have a Veterans Memorial Park here in Bass River, Nova Scotia. Please Google it. Once again, another doctor, Dr. Karen Ewing. It's a world-class Veterans Memorial. It's a magnet. That is a gravitational point to veterans here in Halifax. We muster there for United Nations celebrations. We muster for Remembrance Day. We muster for a Holocaust Memorial. And all those little non-VAC support systems that get us through the day. My dual background, having started out with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and then retired from the military, has so many Mounties here in Halifax, so many Royal Canadian Mounted Police members who still in many circles are not even considered veterans. They come to me and they say, how do you address this problem, or how do you get access to this, or how do you get this benefit, or how do you get a disability tax credit from CRA? And it seems, and I hope I'm wrong, but it seems that the default setting to any query or inquiry directed at VAC, the default response is no. And if 50% of the people that apply for a stair climber or a TENS machine or whatever are met with a no, 50% of them say, well, I applied for it and they denied it, so I guess we're done. So then you go to Veterans Appeal Board and you put in an appeal. Maybe that works. Maybe they come back again and say, no, that's not related to your pension condition. Well, if you have PTSD, and if when you get an attack, you are shut down muscularly, and a Dr. Leckie loans me a TENS machine and says, here, try this. And I put it on my neck and I start zapping myself, and all of a sudden I can move and I can get back to attacking the problem that put me there in the first place. She says, well, it seems to work. So she sends the letter and says, listen, I did one of these on a trial basis, and did it ever work? And they come back and say, yes, but it's not related to his pension condition. So then you want to jump in your car, jump on your motorcycle, ride up to Ottawa and find this individual who keeps saying no to medical professions who say this might help. They don't say this will help. They say this might help. And the response or the approach is quite often, and I hate this. I have it written down here that you have to find an angel, a VAC angel, we call them. One of them is on my computer here. She knows who she is, because they know which buttons to push. You're not supposed to have to know which buttons to push. Okay? I was in charge of the most unpopular organization in the military, the Career Manager Shop. And I would sit my staff down every morning and say, listen, let's try to help out more people today than we piss off. You're not going to get them all right, but let's just try to help out more than we hurt. That's the best we can hope for.
On that sentiment, sir, I'm terribly sorry. We're well past I think we're past into the 7 or 8 minute mark now, but I apologize. You'll get to know throughout the next hour and a half or so. I am a professional interrupter, so I do apologize in advance. I've let everybody go a little long in their opening. Quite frankly, the clerk is whispering in my ear saying this time, and I'm like, I dare you to cut them off.
I will leave you. I will leave you with one thought. Then one thought, Mr. Chairman. Answer the friggin' phone. Just answer the phone. That's all I want. Just answer the phone.
Thank you, Mr. White. Before we hop right into questions and folks will have an opportunity to continue their thoughts. I'm going to ask the clerk to suspend just very quickly so that we can do Scott's sound check. Mr. Clerk. All right, thank you very much. And to start us off, MP Broussard for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and far be it from me to preclude the analyst's report, but I think recommendation number one might be just answer the phone. So thank you for that, Jerry. Got a lot to get to here, but I want to start with Mr. Brouillet. Sean, thanks for being here. And I know that, listen, in the time that I've known you over all these years, there's no one that can come to committee and nobody who outside of the military is more prepared than you are with respect to the information that you provide. I want to, in your remarks, the ombudsman, like you, used the expression that families should receive care in their own right, but you added the phrase, of their own accord. What do you mean by that? And what are the obstacles to some of the families receiving mental health care now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Broussard. I'm very humbled by your comments. So, the Ombudsman was absolutely correct in using the expression in their own right. That is the availability part of the program. We all know that there's a lot of programs at VSC. Said something about accessibility. And that would be of their own accord, because accessibility too often is determined by Veterans Affairs and not by the needs of the family member or the needs of the veteran themselves. So I wanted to use a word of their own accord, which means that if there is a wish and there is a medically identifiable need by a practitioner outside of Veterans Affairs, then that care should be given, no questions asked and no delays given. So the obstacles to families, searching for mental health care, and we all of us have identified the need for it here today. So I won't belabor that point, but there are a lot of technicalities that exist today. So for instance, when a veteran, first of all, as Dr. McKinnon pointed out, in order to get the mental health care for the family is that the veteran first has to be case managed. And then once the veteran has put on a waiting period, and some of those waiting periods we're looking at now, we're talking months, sometimes over a year in some of the districts, for a veteran to receive a case manager. Then the veteran gets to develop a case, gets admitted, to the medical rehabilitation plan, or perhaps it might be a vocational rehabilitation plan. But once they're admitted to a plan, then they have to go on and develop a case management plan with that case manager. Then the case manager has to identify whether that family meets those plans. Now, the important thing here is that it's not whether the family has a need. It's, as Veterans Affairs says, it's whether the veteran has a need for the family to get the care. And when obstacles are presented, such as numerous people pointed out, that when the veteran doesn't want the family to get care or doesn't even want a case manager, the veteran's family is left in a lurch. So Veterans Affairs has wonderful, wonderful rhetoric about how families of veterans should be receiving care. And you know, Garnier resulted in both good and bad policy interpretations. One of the good ones that doesn't seem to be acted upon is, quote, achieving a positive outcome can be compromised if the veteran is treated in isolation without addressing the effects of that mental health condition has on the family, or the effects that the family dynamic has on the patient's own mental health condition.
Okay, thank you for that. And I want to go over to Jerry, because one of the issues that Sean just brought up was no VAC support systems. You mentioned that in your opening remarks, Jerry, and the fact that the family is paying a price as well. And you mentioned specifically the help that your wife has given you. What types of supports or what improvements can be made in the overall caregiver benefit to help you in your situation, Jerry, with your wife? Because the challenge is that, you know, you have to be extremely disabled in order to even apply for the caregiver benefit. But specifically to your case, what can we do to help? Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not that it's not available, and I do understand that a percentage of my Veterans Affairs benefits, of which I am in receipt of, a portion of that is allocated to my wife. I understand that. But firstly, if I may take your answer or your question in two parts. Firstly, the system acknowledges a missing arm or blind eyes or a missing leg a lot more readily than they acknowledge mental health issues. Perhaps that is because they're more difficult to quantify or qualify, but we have some really smart people here at the OTSSC in Halifax. So, but just to investigate what that caregiver does, I don't like calling my wife a caregiver. She's my wife. I didn't marry a caregiver, but I would not be participating in this panel today if it weren't for her.
Yeah,
and
Jerry,
just to be able to put it in and acknowledge it.
Okay, thank you. And I hate the fact that we're limited in time, but Ms. Evanchen, you told your story. What help do you need from this study?
That as a common law partner, that I am just as valuable as a wife, as a spouse. At the moment, I get kind of shuffled to the back. I'm new to this life with him, but in doing that, we've come so far in 3 years. But I get next to nothing. It's like I don't count. My kids don't count.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bree, I'm going to come back to you in later round. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Up next, we have MP Fillmore, please, for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Chair, and a tremendous thanks to all of the witnesses today for giving your time and experience. A particular thanks to Ms. Evanchen for painting a very vivid picture of the challenges facing family members, including kids, and in a different kind of family permutation. And you made the case very well there. So thank you for that. My fellow committee members have heard me speak in the past about the tremendous concentration of active service people in all 3 branches and plus the RCMP, as well as retirees, veterans of those branches in Halifax. And so every challenge that we can imagine and every uplifting moment that we can imagine that comes with veterans as well exists here in Halifax. And that's why I'm so glad that Lieutenant Commanders retired Dr. Heather McKinnon and Jerry White are able to be here. So I want to direct my question first to Heather and try to split the time in half. Heather, so if I start to get fidgety, it means I'm hoping to save some time for Jerry. You have an incredibly unique perspective and practice, and you've got so much to share. I really kind of want to give you broad leeway on about the importance of supporting families and caregivers based on your experience.
Well, it's very frustrating. I can't seem to get help. I try all sorts of tricks because I've been at it a long time, and I can call. I sort of beg people to take patients. I have a situation with a fellow. He's 33, so he can't get help. And his mother and I were on the phone. The father's a veteran, he's a patient, and the son is a patient. And I'm going to beg a psychiatrist to see him. But I've also made my plan, and with the mom, and we decided that what I would do, I'm going to start him on medication. It would just be kind of nice to get a psychiatrist to confer the things that are wrong with him, but I'll go ahead with it on my own anyway. But that's kind of the way it is. I have the psychiatrists that are working for VAC. Sometimes I can get them to see somebody. I have a situation right now with somebody who was a medic in the military. Illness, had 4 strokes, and we're having a terrible time getting him registered with VAC. It's just not happening. And it's been 4 or 5 months, and he's fallen off the wagon, and everything's deteriorating, and there is a psychiatrist involved, but we just don't seem to be getting help. So I'm doing, again, I'm dealing with his family, I'm dealing with his sister. I'm dealing with other people in his family because he lives alone. I mean, it's a horrible situation. His ex-wife is helping me. It's just that everybody's contributing, but we're not moving forward. Why hasn't he? This happened in June, and why hasn't he been? Isn't he into VAC now? Why hasn't he been registered? We started this in September when he got released from hospital. I don't understand it. And so these are the sort of frustrating bits. And I mean, I will go anywhere for help. And Jerry knows that. I will go to other systems to get help. I'll go through the public system. I'll go through other VAC. I even get veterans to help other veterans. I call on them to help with a situation if we think somebody needs to be babysat or something, or we're a little bit worried about suicidal ideations. We work on it. But that's what I'll say.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Heather. I'm very grateful for your time today. Jerry, you started your remark today before we started the meeting by saying that you put to rest a veteran this morning. I know that you also will go to anybody's home in the middle of the night to help, and everything in between those two things. You have an incredibly active life of helping people in Nova Scotia. You ran out of time when you were talking about the importance of support for family and caregivers. And I wonder if you could complete what you wanted to say, and with that focus on what benefit is derived to the veteran by providing those supports to family members.
Thank you, Mr. Honorable Member. I appreciate it. I think all veterans would be, my caregiver is taking care of me even while I'm talking to you. There you go. The care, support given by your primary caregiver, we will say, which is my wife. If you added all of your salaries together and started paying her that might be half of what they earn, what she earns. Okay, just putting up with us. Okay, your mental health. You're a mental health administrator, and my wife is retired from 30 years of taking care of troubled children. So God picked a perfect caregiver for me. But it's the involvement. Our veterans, UN NATO veterans group here is supposed to help out where VAC cannot deliver the goods. What we end up doing is we are the primary support organization for our veterans here in Halifax. There are 800 of us in Nova Scotia. There are 400 in Metro. And we are the midnight phone calls, the interventions. Fortunately, I managed to get through life without pills or alcohol or whatever. But we are the intervention team, a bunch of assembly of veterans from all backgrounds and all histories. And then if we can get VAC to help out, I'd love to have a caseworker. Been trying for years. My last one was 10 years ago, a fine gentleman who retired. But it's our group here that is taking care of our veterans. And then if we can bang down enough doors, if we can get the McKinnons and the Otto Manns and the Dr. Daniel Rasicks, if we can get them to push the right buttons, then we will get what we need from Veterans Affairs. Now, I'm not here to slag, or I am being very well taken care of by VAC. I really am. I have no complaints whatsoever with the care I get, but it has taken a lot of door pounding, and Sean will tell you, retired military officers don't do real well at negotiation. We like to negotiate at the end of a carbine, but that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thanks, Jerry.
I really do hope to not make this a habit in cutting you off. I apologize.
Cut me off all you want.
Over to Deputy Desilets for 6 minutes, please.
6 minutes, Mr. Desilets. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all our witnesses. Your presence is very important, and this allows us to better understand what's being experienced with regards to VAC. Thank you for your service as well. We've heard testimony that was extremely touching, and you, Mrs. Evanston, I'm extremely empathic, and I have a lot of sympathy for your cause. And I'll begin with you with one short question. 2 weeks ago, we had a veteran as a witness here, and we had a lot of concrete examples that were given to us where veterans have to face situations, and he spoke to his specific case. He said that he had trouble receiving French language services and the impact that this could have. Now, my question might seem silly, but in English, could this happen? Is this something that's ever happened to your knowledge?
Thank you for your question. As far as I'm aware, in our instance, no, it has not been a problem. I'm from Quebec, and I speak French, so I understand the hurdles outside of French-speaking areas. And particularly in this regard, I could see how it would be almost like Mount Everest, to be honest, to try and get over it. It's hard enough to get someone to help, and then to throw another language in there would be almost next to impossible, to be honest.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to see that you're from Quebec. So if we continue, Mrs. Evanson, you spoke about important obstacles. Earlier on, you said you ask a question, you receive all kinds of answers, or you hear both possible sides. It's a type of contradiction. Can you tell us about other obstacles that you've had to, other hurdles that you've had to go through?
Oh, thank you. How about pick up the phone? You will call. Exactly. You call and you leave messages, you send emails, they don't get back to you. We're still waiting. Kevin has sent emails, and 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks go by, and we still don't get an answer. So you don't want, someone, every time someone has a problem, you pick up the phone and call. But when there's a steady need, you need to help people, and just answer us. It's a simple answer. Give us a simple answer, and not necessarily will go away, but we can at least understand better. But we don't get that. So if someone would just pick up the phone, it would be helpful.
I see that Mr. White agrees with you. So you're talking about a wait time of how long? Mr. White or Mrs. Evanston, if you've had to make calls, and how long have you waited on the phone? I took a picture of my phone, of my cell phone. The wait time was 1 hour and 14 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes for the wait time. But it's a constant fight. It's a constant fight to get anything. First of all, just to get an answer. And then you're passed around from one department to the next. And in the end, you'll receive a no. Or the situation, the most frustrating situation, is then they put you on hold, and then the call gets disconnected. And then we start the whole thing up again from...
It is so frustrating. You just give up, which is almost, I hate to say it because I know your staff come to work in the morning wanting to do good for people. But that is not the way it comes across, Mr. Minister. It is not the way it comes across. It seems that they just want you to go away, as Tracy so succinctly put it. They just want you to go away. And the good news is we keep dying, so we will go away. You just have to outwait us. We keep dying. But in the meantime, it would be nice to have a little tiny bit of dignity accorded to us by VAC. I'm sorry. If I get emotional, it's because it is an emotional procedure. And my dear friend, Andy Fillmore, he knows part of the therapy. He tasks us. He calls veterans and says, I need you to do an income tax run, or I need you to do a food bank run, or I need you to go and visit this guy. He knows what the answer is going to be when he calls us. The answer is going to be, I'm on it, Mr. Member. And we just go. That's our therapy. But we have to do it all within ourselves. I'm sorry. We have to do it all within ourselves with the faint hope clause that we will get through, or that we will find a Heather McKinnon should have retired 3 or 4 years ago. We need new guardian angels just to know which buttons to push to get through to Veterans Affairs. I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Chair.
I'm afraid that's time as well. Anyway, Mr. Desilets. Up next, we have MP Blaney for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank everybody for your service, because in one way or another, you have given a great service to our country. If I could start with you first, Tracy. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the real story that you told us. I just thought that was very powerful to clarify that experience and how much work it is and how much work you have to do just in the forethought and knowing that every step of the way there's going to be more and more challenges. One of the things that you talked about was the fact that you've only been in this for 3 years and that you're common law and you often feel that you don't count. We've heard from VAC that common law partners are the same as every other partner. But I'm hearing from you that that is not the case. And it would really be helpful to this committee if you could explain what you see as the clear differences.
Thank you. Yeah, to be honest, it wasn't easy to give you a day in the life. Sometimes not all of these things happen, but by and large, it happens. Unfortunately, being that I've been with Kevin for 3 years, it is a fight for recognition that I am, and much like Jerry, a caregiver, he's not a child, he's not a baby. I'm not tending to his diapers and giving him a bottle, although sometimes it feels that way. Hope he's not listening. But you can't go into meetings with them, or they won't speak in front of you, or I'm not entitled to groups, or I'm not entitled to certain benefits, or we have to buy into them with what very little we have. So I feel, as much as he feels marginalized as a veteran, as does most, I don't even come onto the scale. I just feel like I should be under a rock somewhere, and that's where I'm viewed as from the powers that be, if that makes any sense at all. I hope it answered your question.
It does make sense, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate also the bravery of you to be able to answer these questions so honestly and share so intimately your experience. Just one last question is, you talked about the neighbor and all those stresses. And I just, when you were telling that story, I was thinking so many people would say, yeah, that would irritate me too. What I really would appreciate, if you can, is to explain what the difference is. What a person who does not have PTSD would experience is one thing, but somebody who's living with those realities, and then the work that you have to do as the caregiver. I really want to make sure that we have it on the record, the clear difference that you experience because of that history.
Okay, thank you. The dogs, for instance, I have a dog. I have a big dog. He likes to bark. They have 2 dogs that bark incessantly. So for Kevin, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's a continual nuisance. And then the police, I call up, I try and buffer. I've gone up there. I've been threatened. It's dangerous up here, little lady. I'm like, I hope you're not talking to me like that, because that's not going to bode very well for you. But it's always at Kevin's expense. The guns will start going off. Same family, with no warning. So all of a sudden, Kevin is sitting there, everything's grand, and then all of a sudden, a barrage of weapons are being discharged 150 feet from our door. I've seen him hit the ground. I've seen him kind of get angry, go to the bedroom, close the door, go under the blankets, and not want to come out. I then go back up there again, and my kids are screaming, Mom, they've got guns. And I'm like, I don't care, because Kevin means more to me than a bunch of kids playing with guns. And if they want to try, then good luck to them again. Then the dirt bike, which is loud, it goes up and down. You call the police, they come. In all honesty, we've been told once by a police officer, I'm not going up there, they have guns. Oh, okay. Pretty sure you have one too. So go on up and take care of this. But it's continual, and it can be something as simple as driving down the road and someone inadvertently, or they cut you off. It sends them into a tailspin, a backfire, the start of a lawnmower. It's all these things that we take for granted that send them somewhere else. And sometimes it's somewhere, a place that we can't get them back from very easily.
Thank you. I think that outlined so clearly what the distinct difference is. Dr. Whalen, if I could come to you, one of the things that you said in your testimony is that the family and caregivers are not trained professionals, and yet they're asked to address the issues that member is experiencing, PTSD and other issues. I'm just wondering if you could speak to the impact on caregivers, but also what do we need to put in place to support caregivers?
Just a brief answer, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it's by default that the spouses or partners are given this responsibility because there's nothing else available. Clinicians are not going to meet with them in a crisis. We'll meet with them 2 or 3 weeks and sometimes a month down the road. So by default, it's partners and whoever else they can help them to manage the in-between time, and that gets lost. So the short answer to your question is the entire family, as I said, needs to be case managed right from the get-go to rule out consequences for them and the level of responsibilities that they have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now over to, for 5 minutes, MP Wagenthal, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for being here today. I can't help but notice that those that are here in the role of giving assistance are veterans themselves. And this just speaks so strongly to the whole case of veterans understanding and helping veterans at every level. So Dr. Whalen, first of all, I appreciate the professional perspective that you bring to this, because so often I hear from those that are struggling and it's like they hit a wall when they try to express their concerns. And so coming from you adds that other level of credibility. Caregivers Brigade were here and gave testimony. And today with Ms. Evanchen, these are people who are in the circumstances experiencing what you call being invincible linchpins. And their essential role. I can't help thinking of COVID and how we've all come to realize the importance of essential services. And could you just expound on that for a moment in regards to, this is an essential service that plays such a huge role in the health of our nation, let alone the health of these particular individuals?
Again, thank you, Chair. Not to get too far off track, but it really, I think, becomes part of and an extension of an ideology that if who is responsible for managing family life, home life, the emotional culture of that home, well, it's by default women. And I think inadvertently or not thinking it through, I think our policies take that for granted in terms of how how the departments think about the roles of women in families. It's a no-brainer, because nobody wants to acknowledge that, how much we actually take for granted. I mean, we've seen, yeah, thank you.
No, that's great. And that's the truth. There's a lot of responsibility in that home that people take for granted in the best of circumstances, let alone in these circumstances as well. So that's very significant. Dr. McKinnon, thank you so much for your service, and also for your service now in the role that you're playing. I keep hearing that we do not have how do we get more doctors who have that understanding and that passion to serve our veterans, both within armed forces and the RCMP? Because it sounds like you are on your own, and this is something we hear over and over again, that this is something we should be making a priority in even how we set up supports for our veterans, the availability of doctors like yourself.
Well, part of it is because I was in the military for so long, and I was on a lot of missions. And a lot of my patients come from the missions that I was on.
Okay.
So that's part of it. But the other part is, I think you could recruit. I mean, it takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. And if you're on fee for service, you wouldn't get paid very well. I think that's part of it. But there are a few people that do it. There is another doctor who wasn't in the service, but she did work for the service, and she's very good with veterans. And so that's two of us.
Can I just ask then, you just mentioned if you're paid fee for service the way it's typically done, perhaps we need to look at another model in regards to doctors serving veterans with the expertise that you have. Just a quick, I mean, we need to do something different.
Yes, you do. You do, certainly do. I mean, if you do a medical, you can charge VA for that, but you don't get paid by Veterans Affairs for anything, really. And this is an issue too, because the civilian side of it doesn't recognize you for what you're doing, and they make it quite hard on you. And at one point, they all thought that I should have been billing Veterans Affairs for everything I did, not my. Okay. When I see a patient, it belongs to the Nova Scotia Health Authority. It doesn't belong to Veterans Affairs. So this is a problem some of the doctors run into.
Okay, thank you so much. Retired Lieutenant Jerry White, you mentioned something that intrigues me, because I'm aware of this in other cases where a patient needs a certain treatment and they're just not getting that access from VAC. So the doctor goes ahead and tries things and does things and finds results that work. And then it isn't recognized, that they're not listened to. I can say this specifically in regards to mefloquine and brainstem injuries. There are methods of dealing with this in amazing ways, and yet VAC is not responsive.
I'm afraid that's time, but I'll let Jerry do a quick answer.
Fortunately, I took doxycycline instead of mefloquine, but you just keep banging on the door till they answer. I would like to address one of Tracy's comments. I am also a justice of the peace in and for the province of Nova Scotia, and I currently have several military and a couple of mounted policemen that I have on the docket so that I can marry them before they turn 60, so that their spouses can get benefits. I don't know how you spell pathetic, but that's right. It got to be right up there with it. That should answer a plethora of questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now over to MP Sampson for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I can't thank enough all 5 of you for your presentation today. With the presentation and the feedback we're receiving, it will be extremely helpful for our committee to put a report in place that will help. I just can't say enough for each and every one. Thank you very, very much for that information. As you know, the population in Nova Scotia, we get the highest population of active and retired military in the country per ratio. And sometimes people forget that, but we have very high numbers. And in my riding in Sagamore-Preston, Chesapeake, it's the highest yet. So it's what I call Team Canada here today, because Team Nova Scotia, I should say, because we have Heather, of course, Dr. Heather, we have Mr. White and Mr. Whalen, which are all three very important individuals to support the veterans in our communities, and how they help each other is just amazing. So I know the connections between Heather as her work and as a doctor supporting it. I can't say enough for you, Heather. Every time I speak or listen to you, it's just amazing the things that you're doing. Mr. White and the support that you're doing 24/7. And I think of the sports that individuals do, but also Vets Canada. And Mr. Whalen, the research is so important. And there's a link between all of you for that research. And that's why I think we're being able to find some solutions as we move forward. Dr. Whalen, very quickly, you talked about 40% of the veterans are invested in their treatments and 60% are not. What, why is there such a number that's not? And what can we do to change that?
Thank you, Chair. So among the 60%, it would come down to the circumstances of their release from the military. If they're disgruntled about, they want to stay in uniform, they still have a military code, they really don't want to move into civilian life and accept that they have problems and that they had to change some of their behaviors at home. So it's really, they'll start and stop. They may disappear for a while if they hear something in a therapy session that they don't particularly like, or we may invite their partners in. Sometimes they don't want their partners involved. So the really ambivalence is really, I think I need it, I think I want it, but then they disappear and may show up again.
What can we do to change that quickly? We don't have much time.
It's really to, I think stepping back, I think we need to debrief people before they leave the military, the culture, so that they're not leaving angry and ashamed and feeling like failure, because that just continues and continues, and we're left trying to undo the effects of that.
Very, very good point. Mr. White, you spoke about Peter Stouffer, and I can't say enough about Peter Stouffer and his work as an advocate. He and I have been friends for a long time, and even today, he and I are both working together to support veterans and their family, and it's so important. I appreciate that comment. Two quick questions for you, and of course for Dr. McKinnon, would be the new programs that's out, the Caregivers Recognition Benefit and the Veterans Wellbeing Fund. How are they received on the ground, and what can we do to improve them? We'll start with you, Mr. White, and then Mrs. McKinnon, very quickly, because we're playing with time.
Most people probably do not realize that those programs have been brought into existence.
Mhm.
I learned about it much after the fact, but just simply getting the news that those programs are out there, and getting your staff and your constituency staff to publish it in your quarterlies that you put out to your constituents. Most veterans have no idea of the assistance that is available to them until they see somebody else got it. And the question is always, how do I get that? I say, well, go see Dr. McKinnon. She'll be able to help you out.
Thank you. Dr. McKinnon, quickly.
That's about it. Usually I don't know exactly who qualifies, why.
What can we do to improve it, Dr. McKinnon?
Publicize it more, send it out to veterans, send it out to all people, make it big and public, because they don't know. I'm using it for dying patients at the moment, but get it out. That's a big thing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. For 2.5 minutes, we have Deputy Desilets.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My last question was answered by Mr. White, and it had to do with wait times. And you reacted strongly. Ms. Evenchen, now you were about to answer to my last question, but we didn't have enough time. So would you like to give me an answer about the wait times on the phone? There are very long wait times. So do you wish to comment?
Thank you. There's no doubt, thank goodness for phones with speakers, because we will just put it on the table and go about our business, because we have been on the phone, and I'm not lying, for half a day, because you finally get through to somebody an hour and a half later, and then they say, oh, let me just put you on hold. And then it's another person picks up the phone and you have to start all over again. And then you're put on hold and then you're disconnected somehow. And then that just sends Kevin right over the edge. And it's not even, let's just call back and do it all over again. We have to wait days before he can even come back down, before we can even attempt that. So we get nowhere fast. Hurry up and wait.
Okay, une autre question pour vous.
Another question for you, Ms. Evanchen. If I said that we have to find a solution that would work better in the long term in terms of resources that are required so that men and women can stay closer to their family. I think that you have explained to us well the kind of problems that you can face. So do you have any ideas on what's needed? Is it more people, more money? How could we make sure that people like you who help our veterans can be supported in what they're trying to do?
That's time, but I'll allow for a brief answer, please.
Okay, thank you. I think a case manager would be helpful, but once a case, you get a case, Kevin had a case manager, then they said, you don't need us anymore, and then you're dropped. So we have nobody taking care of us. And then you're just bounced around. So money, yes. More case managers, yes. More help, more empathy. Not sympathy, empathy.
Thank you. MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Brouillet, if I could come to you. You spoke in your testimony about the fact that veterans and their families or caregivers are treated separately, like they're two different things, not related at all. And you talked about things like not supporting children appropriately or dependents appropriately. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about what those gaps are and what would be the next step. I know that we've had witness testimony talk about these systems were put together a long time ago. They don't apply anymore in the world that we live in. So what fundamentally do you think needs to be available for those dependents and caregivers?
Thank you, Ms. Blaney. I mean, excellent question. I think if we take bits and pieces of what everyone has said here today, I think we really need to include a multidisciplinary approach. Mental health research has shown that veterans, especially with severe chronic illnesses, do not get better, do not progress in their life unless they have a multidisciplinary approach. The same would apply for those family members. The members have to be involved in that case management plan. We need to strip all the work and paperwork that case managers have to do so they're freed up to find those practitioners. Now, for instance, in the United States context, veterans can go to a hospital that offers all the multidisciplinary facilities that can address the veteran. What I would like to suggest that in Canada, we don't have that one-stop facility, that a case manager has to prove each individual practitioner for that team. And then, you know, it burdens upon me or the other veterans or the family members to try to get that team to talk to one another. We can be much more creative about this. We can start working in a team management context. Veterans Affairs in the United States has 24-hour-a-day mental health care. We can do the same in Canada if we start training and educating practitioners, bringing them into the Veterans Affairs fold, and offering these services to the families, to the children, and to the veteran, of course.
You also talked about the fact that I think you said 56% of veterans with mental disabilities are married or common law, which means that there's a large portion of veterans that are not in a relationship. So I'm just wondering, one of the things we've heard is sometimes very hard for female veterans that are single and male veterans that are single to get supports from who they designate as a caregiver. I'm just wondering if you have anything to reflect on in that area.
That's time, but I'll allow for a brief answer, please, sir.
It's a very tragic situation that needs to be addressed. And I would think a multidisciplinary team can help fill that gap that families would normally fill.
Thank you. And now over to MP Davidson for 5 minutes, please.
It's going to be me, Mr. Chair.
Oh, my mistake.
Yep.
MP Broussard, please.
Thank you. Mr. Brouet, I mentioned that I'd come back to you. Simple question. Would you say that you have challenged successfully successive governments in some of the claims that they've made with respect to certain benefit provisions that are applied to veterans? Would that be a fair assessment to make?
I think in the public opinion field, I think yes, I have. Has government done anything to change it? No.
Now you were involved in a highly publicized situation that involved your son, and it goes back several years to his education. So I want to focus a little bit on dependent, and Ms. Blaney started us down this path. You challenged Minister O'Regan in a column for a Pension for Life article that you had written. Minister O'Regan wrote back. There was a defamation suit that was filed by you, and then a day after that article appeared, the benefits to your son was cut off. And I know that the Veterans Ombudsman wrote a report with respect to that basically deemed it as retaliatory. So I'm just wondering if you could share with the committee your experiences there. And I will be cutting you off at the 4-minute mark because I do have another question to ask you, but if you could share with us what you've experienced through that.
Thank you. As you know, Mr. Broussard, I usually come here and advocate for policy change and on behalf of other veterans. It's very difficult for me as a veteran to speak personally of what I go through. And I can't tell you all, members of the committee, how difficult it is to see the effects of my PTSD has on my family. And I'll try to keep it together here, but I can tell you that when they cut off that care, it was devastating. The timing of it, of course, was the immediate link. But as we progressed, I discovered that my case manager didn't keep any case management notes as to why she cut off that care. I found that assistant deputy ministers were intruding and preventing all opportunities, including appointments of inquiries resolution officers, to try to find an answer of how to get that care back. And so for me personally and my family, they've watched me spiral out of what was I had advanced so far in my rehabilitation plan up until that day. And then they saw me attend hospitals appointments, going to emergency wards once a month, at least every single appointment. I can tell you every single appointment, whether it's mental health care, massage, physiotherapy, they were all preoccupied with addressing the negative effects of VAC going after my family. Veterans have very little self-esteem when they come out with PTSD. They have such a low sense of having accomplished anything. Their families are the one solid backbone for them. We've heard from all testimony today. When that family is attacked, I mean, we're not talking about just not supported, but when that family, a 6-year-old boy or son at the time, when his care was attacked, it was something I'm still recovering from.
I can tell. Now you mentioned at the beginning of the answer that you gave about policy changes, and in your opening remarks you said that you'd like to come back to the committee to talk about and maybe expand on some of your experiences, but about a culture change within VAC as well. If we were to invite you back, what would you be? And I know you mentioned a couple of other names as well. Your advocate, Alan Hunter, and then Tina Fitzpatrick. But if you were to come back, what is it that you would hope to share with the committee in a longer fashion?
I thank you, Mr. Broussard. I would really like to show the trail of how decisions are made, how senior bureaucrats interfere with frontline workers, the burden that's placed on frontline workers in their inability to actually, what little time they have to help out their veterans when they're being case managed. I would be able to show overall how that culture works. I would also be able to show a cultural insensitivity to the needs of veterans and their families. For instance, more than 30 different communications went to that department, to Deputy Minister Walter Nitinchuk, to Assistant Deputy Minister, to Associate Deputy Minister sorry, its assistant, Bernard Butler, Michel Doiron, and they documented the harm that was being done to myself, my son, my wife, and never once in those 30 emails was there an email that came back or a letter that came back and said, I'm sorry to hear you guys are hurting. There was never an acknowledgement of that suffering. And I think that culture pervades the entire department from the senior bureaucracy that has really lost touch with what it means to care for veterans and families. And then unfortunately, they allow personal bias against someone like me who criticized them to take retaliation against the veteran or the family.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Bria.
very much. Thank you. Thank you. And now over to MP Casey for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. White, I had the honor to serve with Peter Stauffer, and absolutely fine gentleman, but I can honestly tell you that I have never, ever heard anyone use the word Peter Stauffer and saint in the same sentence. A brief story, if I may. Peter was one of these guys that would go through Parliament and call every single person by name. And it didn't matter whether it was another MP, whether it was a security guard, whether it was somebody in the cafeteria, he called everyone by name. But the reason he was able to do that is because he thought everybody's name was Buddy. Okay, I'm gonna begin with the other the patron saint that you referenced, Mr. White, Dr. McKinnon. Dr. McKinnon, in your remarks, you talked about the challenges associated with caseworkers, or with the availability of caseworkers. And this has been a vexing problem over the years, certainly one that we inherited and put a lot of money into, for there to be more caseworkers with smaller caseloads. I would like to hear from you if you could elaborate a bit more on this caseworker challenge. We do hear from the union lots about it, and I'd like your advice on how we solve that.
Well, you just solved it with saying more caseworkers with smaller caseloads. That would be fantastic. The other thing is when people do get a caseworker, they're very good and they work hard for them. And the problem is, though, that they don't have them very long. They're often told, well, you don't need one anymore. That's not the case. People deteriorate, they change, and situations develop, and they don't have anybody. And I think this is where it doesn't work. And so I really think that veterans need a caseworker or a manager or somebody that it's theirs to contact. Like Tracy, she should have somebody that's always hers to call for them. I mean, I think if we just could have more of that, a lot more problems would be sorted out and solved.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Whalen, I'd like to turn to you for a moment. There's a program called VAC Assistance Services. It's a 24/7 toll-free telephone service. Is this a program with which you are familiar, and is this a program that refers cases to you or your clinic?
Thank you, Chair. To Mr. Casey, no, it's not a program I'm familiar with. Most of the people we saw, and I should say, at the end of 2019, before COVID, I closed that clinic was closed just because there's so much frustration, burnout among our staff that really it's back to individual. So to answer your question, it's not a service I'm aware of.
When you say you closed the clinic, do you mean the clinic, the clinic that serves veterans, or you closed your practice altogether?
No, I closed the clinic itself just because I had staff retiring, just because of the years of frustrations and just not being able to do other types of work that have shown benefit. It was just time on that.
Allow me to ask you about another program that's offered, the Occupational Stress Injury Support Group. This is something that I know here in Charlottetown is active and provides an excellent network for veterans and their families. Have you had experience with that through your practice or otherwise, and can you offer comment on it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, very familiar with OSIS and the workers here in Nova Scotia. It's changed quite a bit over time. There were a lot of conditions put on that where veterans would go and then didn't feel safe, in that they couldn't really talk about things that were of concern to them. There were strict rules around what could and could not be discussed. So we used to advise people initially, yes, and then we became much more judicious about that it would cause them more harm to attend than not, actually.
That's almost your time. You have about 10 seconds there, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now over to MP Wagenthal for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, all of you, again, for your help today. It's been very revealing. And Sean, I'd just like to go to you to ask a question in regards to one of your recommendations that you've spoken of is the importance of creating an upfront, the values of upfront and long-term benefits to a veterans families advisory group. I know this government has a lot of advisory groups in place. You indicate that it should be created and composed of veterans with families, veterans family members, rehabilitation and mental health specialists, as well as medical specialists with a strong background in family dynamics and needs. And yet you also say that they would not be required to sign disclosure agreements and would not include government officials. Could you just expound a bit on that? Because it's so crucial that if we're going to do these things, they actually hear what needs to be heard and get implemented.
Well, thank you, Ms. Wagenthal. I think today is a perfect example how you are all hearing from individuals with that are unhindered in their ability to speak openly. And that's what we really need. I think the public, I think Parliament needs to hear this unfiltered information, the unfiltered data that comes to you. And the current structure of the advisory groups, yes, they have some of these experts on board for the families, but the problem is that they're co-chaired by bureaucrats. They're always bureaucrats running around the room, presenting material, deciding on the agenda, and then editing the final reports. And I've heard from various members of various advisory groups that this is in no way conducive to providing independent and authentic and meaningful recommendations. So I think it would be in the benefit of all people, Canadians and Parliament, to have these independent advisory groups that are chosen, hopefully, by an independent body, such as currently could be the Ombudsman, but hopefully an independent federal appointments commissioner.
Okay, great, thank you. Dr. McKinnon, you mentioned the need for more case managers, and I hear so often from veterans, I had such a good case manager at some point in time. And I couldn't agree more with you that that's absolutely crucial. I also have heard from case managers, their role right now as it stands, they're in the middle, right? They're between a hierarchy above them that gives them directives, and then they have the veterans and their families that have the needs, and they got caught in this dynamic. If they had more authority, more education, more understanding, more incentive to stay on long term because they didn't have such a huge caseload and be facing dynamics where they really don't have the opportunities to provide the care they want to give to veterans, would that make a difference? How do you see that could be improved?
Well, certainly if they had more of that obviously would help. I think more of them is also another issue it's really important. With the OSI, these OSI clinics, you can't get onto them without a case manager. So they work wonderfully, but in my practice of all veterans, I only have 2 people in an OSI clinic because they had to have a case manager put them there. So that's one of the things that we really miss. But I would say the case manager, yes, is instrumental. And in getting, because they know what things are available for veterans. Maybe veterans wouldn't have to ask for things if the case manager could bring it to their attention and say, yes, this is what I can give you, this or do that. Have you thought about it? Most of them say, no, I didn't know about this, or the caregiver, what's available. I think that would be wonderful. As I said, you just need to be tweaked. There's things out there, you just have to get to them.
Right. So right now, you know about the backlog, obviously.
Yes.
The dynamics going on there. Who doesn't? Every Canadian knows that, I think, now. The truth of the matter is that our case managers are burnt out and they're being replaced or adding in more on a temporary basis. And we've heard over and over again that that is the wrong direction to go. So what is your perspective on that?
Well, you're right on that. They disappear. They just disappear. And I agree that. And I guess they have to look at that level in Veterans Affairs and see what can be done to support them.
Okay, thank you so much. Talk to me.
You have about a 30-second answer, please.
Our problems aren't temporary, so the people who address them can't be temporary. I'd like to make a quick comment on what Sean said about the one-stop shopping. I travel a lot in the USA. I can go into a Veterans Affairs hospital in the United States and get my problems taken care of if I have a problem. The one-stop shop that Tim was talking about existed. It was called the OTSSC. It was in Halifax. It had a mental health clinic on the 5th floor. It was a physical hospital. It had physiotherapy. And in case you knocked somebody's teeth out, it had a dental clinic. The one stop that we needed for veterans existed. It was called the OTSSC. And then somebody says, oh, we need to reinvent the wheel. Sorry, once again, but we're banging drums that they've been banged so much they get holes in them. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. White. Up next for 5 minutes, we have MP Lalonde, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of the witnesses. Thank you for your testimony. And I think all of your testimonies were unique and transparent, and you were all able to share your own unique perspective.
A few years ago, I graduated, and I'll say a few years ago, and the multidisciplinary approach to things is certainly some things that I appreciate all of you sharing as a possible recommendation for this committee. Dr. Whelan, I wanted to go back to some of the your years' experience. We've talked a lot about, and not to neglect Mrs. Evanson, role as a caregiver, as a spouse. And I wanted your perspective maybe a little bit more on the children and the teens within that family unit and how themselves possibly are the caregiver of that veterans. And maybe if you would like to share a little bit more on that front and maybe some recommendation that we can make as a committee.
Once again, thank you, Chair, and to the member. So when it comes to military families, I mean, children, we know this, children and adolescents, military families take on responsibility. They're in, everybody chips in the idea of team. So when those families leave service, those children already know those roles. And when there's distress in the families, boys who were really trying to protect the family or trying to protect the mom, trying to keep dad kind of on an even keel. So they're beyond us trying to offer individual services. There is very little available for them. We didn't treat children, younger children. I have a colleague and she tells me often the level of devastation among these children because of the lack of predictability and control. So again, I come back again to the idea of case management. Case management needs not managing files. It means going into families and doing a comprehensive needs assessment and ruling out the effects of military service, not ruling it in, but making sure what's attributable to military service here.
Thank you very much for your in-depth recommendation, I hope, from my colleagues here. Mrs. Evanson, I want to go back to, I think some of my colleagues made a reference, and you did disclose and shared the status that you are currently. So you are a common law partner. And you're saying there's a difference, if I understand, between being a spouse, married under the law, if I can say, versus a common law partner. And I know you made reference to Quebec. Is that particularly to Quebec, or that's something systemically problematic along with the policies that's currently in place?
Thank you. From what we've seen at this point, it's been very it's not, what's the word? It's not the same over everything. So you talk to the military, it's one answer. You talk to VAC, it's another answer. There's no consistency. That's the word I was looking for. So for myself as common law, there is no consistency on my status, if you will. And especially we kind of pass, like Jerry mentioned, I met Kevin after he was age 60. So I'm almost, see ya, I don't even exist. They kind of laugh. It was some gold digger clause that I believe was created in 1901. So that makes a lot of sense in today's day and age. Thank you. I hope that answered your question.
Well, I'm going to go back. What would you recommend that we change in terms of ensuring that, you know, the way we are making you feel and the sentiment that you're expressing are not there anymore for other, and hopefully for you, you would benefit from any of our recommendations?
Oh, thank you. I think there has to be a deep dive into post policies that are so antiquated, it's ridiculous. Yes, I'm sure 100 and some odd years ago there were gold digger clause and people were trying to coattail on the benefits of veterans and dying veterans. That's not the case anymore, and not to mention veterans are living longer than they were before, so they're lost in the shuffle. And I'm 50. You know, God willing, Kevin's going to be with me for some time, but he has a lot of medical issues. And so right now we scramble because we're not married, couldn't get married because of COVID. We were planning on it, and we don't know we don't know. We just, you're so left up in the air, and that's just another layer on top of having to deal with PTSD and crazy neighbors and medical things that for Kevin, he feels he can't take care of us if something happens to him.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Up next for 2.5 minutes, Deputy Desilets, please.
Mr. Desilets, thank you, Mr. Chair. My last question is from Mr. White and Mrs. Evanson. Could you explain something to me, please? You are two people with a lot of experience. You're articulate, and you have knowledge with regards to how to assist veterans. And can you explain to me, why isn't the government listening to you? This is my question. Why? You have a minute each.
You know what? I don't even know what to say. I believe if someone hasn't, pardon me, walked in your shoes, they honestly have no idea of the journey. And most people are too self-absorbed. Not everybody, but they don't see the picture, so they don't care. And pardon me, everybody's falling to the wayside, and people just don't care.
I have a plan, Tracy. I have a plan.
Hit me, Jerry.
I can come up to Ontario. If I forge your partner's birth certificate, I can perform the wedding ceremony, and that should put everything just about right. That is what we have to resort to, folks. That's the kind of way we have to think. I'm very sorry, but I'm just trying to help out a fellow casualty here.
I want to come to the wedding. I want to come to the wedding.
You're all invited.
For the sake of Monsieur Desilets, I have to step in, though. You have 1 minute left, sir.
Mr. White, you didn't answer. I'd like to hear you speak to why people aren't listening to you at the government. You have all this information, all the knowledge, all this experience. So, in your opinion, and you're an emotional person, go ahead. Yes.
We try and we try and we try and we give up. Hopefully we have an Andy Fillmore or a Heather McKinnon or a John Whalen out there somewhere that but then when we go over the top, if you read some writings of Franz Kafka, who says, right, they just couldn't take it anymore, then the system kicks into high gear and it says, where did we go wrong? Tracy and Sean and Tim Bruyere, we can all tell you where it's going wrong now before there's another, regrettably, another casualty.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very
Merci
much.
à tout le monde.
MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. McKinnon, if I can come to you. Of course, we've heard caseworker testimony from VAC where they talk about having too many people on their list, a lot of burnout, not able to make decisions and having to go up the chain, and how frustrating and time consuming that is. So we've definitely heard from them what those challenges are. But I'm wondering from you, since this is a study specifically on caregivers, I'm just wondering two things. The impact on caregivers when we have veterans that are constantly having to retell their story to a new case manager, when we have the person changing all the time so that they don't know who, like you said earlier, their person is. And then the fact that caregivers cannot have their own case manager and what the challenge is. If you could just talk about that and the impact of the caseworkers on the caregivers.
Well, really, there's not much help for caregivers now, unless, as we said, there's only one criteria where caregivers get help. That would be a spouse and children under 25, as if the veteran gives permission and is recognized, they can get help. But you take any other situation where that veteran does and has a case manager. If that veteran doesn't fit into that criteria, there's nothing. And there's so little for families. There is just so little for the abused wife who just sits at home and gets abused, or the wife that's dealing with a husband that's living in a basement with cameras around the house and neighbors complaining because they think he's going to come out and shoot people or something like that. I mean, there's nothing for these people, and we've just got to get to them, help them, and it may not always happen through a case manager, but that we've got to look at the families very, very closely.
Thank you. And Mr. White, if I can close with you, you talked earlier about how much work it is for a veteran and their caregivers to search continuously for supports and programs instead of having that one-stop place that they can go. So think about the impact, think about your wife without having that accessible service.
My caregiver, I'll call her caregiver. Since I sat down here, my caregiver has given me this glass of water. She has bought me this box of Kleenex, so clearly I have a better caregiver than Bruyere. And when this conversation is over, she's going to spend the next 2 hours talking me down from how wound up I am as a result of participating in this. If you Google, if you Google roast Peter Stauffer or Peter Stauffer roasted, I was the MC of that roast, and I put a body armor on him, and I gave him a name tag that said Stauffer PD, and I picked a trade for him, SD1. That stood for shit disturber first class. Pardon the vulgarity, but that's what we need. We need people to go into the corners after the puck, and we need people to say, Jesus, not only is the veteran spiraling out of control, but he's dragging somebody that he stood up in front of 150 people and said he loved till he was dead, dragging her or him down with, and that's the problem. Is we all, now I realize that we're standing at the bottom of a mountain looking at the top, and it's going to be a very tough job to get there. We had the one-stop shopping that Sean was talking about. It was called Stadacona Hospital, and everything a veteran needed was all in one building, and they gradually sorry Mr. Chair, but just get in the corner after the puck, and above all else, pick up the phone and take the time. Empathy, Tracy said. Just empathize. I don't want your sympathy. I want your empathy.
Thank you, Mr. White. Now over to, I believe, MP Brassard for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jerry, I got to tell you, when I'm in Nova Scotia, you and I are going to get together for a beer, because I'd love to spend more time with you, other than having the chair just cut you off, although that's his job. He already acknowledged that. So Dr. Whalen, Dr. McKinnon, I don't want to take up too much time here, but we've heard the stories, Miss Evanson's stories. We've heard Jerry's story about his wife. You've done studies and you've been in the trenches. And is this symptomatic of and consistent with what you've heard over the years? And you know, how do we fix it?
How do you fix it?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I mean, these are consistent stories?
Mm-hmm.
Give us some recommendations on how we move forward here, because this is going to be an important part.
You need more people. Bottom line, you need more people in Veterans Affairs. You need more people at that level, not higher up, but at that level, focus on putting the policies together, getting these people, getting them out, seeing the people. That's the level where you need to get this done.
Dr. Whalen?
Yes, I would agree. More case managers and case managers that are not so inundated with files that they can't assess families. And we need to move past this ideology we have that it's veteran only. It is not veteran only. It is everybody within with that is close by. And yes, these stories today are all too familiar for myself as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Chair, unless Ms. Wagenthal wants to take up the rest of my time. But I do have a notice of motion that I would like to put on the floor, Mr. Chair. You're aware of that, and so I think we can do that after we're done. But if Kathy,
you wish,
you want me to do it now?
Either way, it's up to you, sir.
Okay, well, I do have time, and so the based on some of the discussion today with Mr. Brouillet, and I believe that he has got some pretty relevant information. I'm going to put the following motion on as a notice of motion to the committee, and that is that the committee invite Sean Brouillet, Alan Hunter, Tina Fitzpatrick, and the Veterans Ombudsperson, Colonel Retired Nishika Jardine, to brief the committee on the VAC mental health care programs for one meeting that can occur no later than April 14th, 2021. There may be a typo in that on the year, but it's supposed to say 2021. And the clerk has that in both official languages, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Do you wish to move this motion today, or are you just putting it on notice?
Just putting it on notice, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We're going to deal with it at a later time, but I just wanted the committee to be aware. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have the clerk distribute the motion, and that is time. Perfect timing. Thank you.
Chair, Tracy, our witness, just put her hand up.
I see that. I see that. I do have. Yep. Go ahead, Tracy, and then we'll go to the final questioner.
Thank you. What I just wanted to mention is it's great to have more case managers, but the case managers need to have an understanding of the military and how it works, because they don't, and so they don't understand the scope. They don't take it seriously, and then our veterans are kicked to the curb from case managers because they just can't understand the problems. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a few minutes here left before the end of our time, and up next we have MP Amos. You're going to get a shortened time slot, sir, so probably 3 minutes max.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses. I'll keep my question brief. Do you feel that the challenges and problems that you've highlighted today are having a material impact on the ability of the Canadian Forces to recruit? And if so, how would you characterize that? So maybe we'll start with Mrs. Evanchen, since she's from my province of Quebec, and then over to Mr. Brouillet, Mr. White, and Mr. Whalen, Mrs. McKinnon.
I'll give you just a brief synopsis. I'm 50. I applied to go into the military last year. Went through this big rigmarole. There's letters written all over the place, and we're in almost the end of March. I haven't heard from the recruiting office in Kingston in 9 weeks. No one will return calls. No one answers emails. I don't even think they're in the office, let's be honest. So they're they're dropping the ball all over the place, especially with women. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Mr. White?
It's real easy for us to sit here and just destroy or eviscerate Veterans Affairs, VAC. That is not what any of us want to do. When somebody says they want to join the military, I said, what a beautiful career. I went all over the world several times in both directions. And now it pays good. But that is not a motivator. You need to know that someone has your back. We have a patch in veterans and it says IGY 6, IGY 6. I got your 6. Okay. Now, I know that I can phone somebody at 4 o'clock in the morning because they're going to have my back. They're going to have my 6. That's what you need to. Yes, it is very much. It is drawing down the, not prestige or status, but it is also affecting the RCMP very dramatically. Is that they need to know somebody cares if they make it to the end of their watch, and then the end of their shift, and then the end of their career, and then in retirement. They need applicants right from the get-go need to know that somebody has their back, has their 6, other than just fellow veterans.
I'm afraid it's appropriate that I cut off Mr. White at the end of this. I a special apology to him for continuously doing that. It's just a matter of timing. But I wanted to. We are unfortunately at the end of our time, and I do want to personally thank each and every one of you for contributing to this difficult study. I would have Mr. White on Zoom calls each and every meeting if we could, just for his reaction to what other people say is heartwarming. So I appreciate.
Mr. Chair, can we give Mr. White the participation ribbon for being cut
so.
off the most?
Think so. Absolutely.
Okay,
we have other service,
you get the medal, Mr. White.
Listen, I do. I want to thank everybody. Before I dismiss my colleagues, however, we do have a deadline to determine. I just have a note here. We need the suggested witness list for the next study, which of course the study for strategy for commemorations. If I could be so bold to suggest Friday, March 26th by 4 p.m. If there's any objections to that, if there are no objections to that, I would suggest that we.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
No objection to that. The only thing that I would ask for, and we haven't really got into a habit, but I remember my first go around on Veterans Affairs, we used to get the master witness list as a, like each party used to get the proposed witness list from each party, and we haven't seen that. So I would like that list, other than just simply submitting. I'd like to see who some of the other witnesses are as well, Mr. Chair.
So John, you and I, let's you and I talk about this maybe offline. It's not something that I've ever done as a chair, either in this committee or in HUMA. I'm not sure if that was the practice before. It'll be up to the committee if they want me to start doing that. There are some challenges with that that I'll chat with you about.
I'd like to speak to that, Chair.
Okay, I can speak to that as we can get going on that, but it's just there's a few challenges with it. We've just, like I said, it's just not been a practice. What we do is we share the witnesses that have been confirmed, and that allows the clerk to do their job. But Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to make a comment. I think looking around the room, I think I'm the old lady matron of the group. Since this government came into effect in 2015, and I've never sat on this committee and not had full access to that list. So I would encourage us to consider doing that. It's very important that we be prepared and be aware of who's coming before us and give them their due. Really appreciate everyone who's here today.
Yeah, just to be clear, everybody is given a list of witnesses that are appearing, but again, there may be some unintended consequences of sharing the entire list, but I'm open to that discussion if maybe we can talk about this in a committee business meeting and weigh the pros and cons. But MP Blaney also has her hand up.
And I just wanted to agree with that. I was there with Kathy for part of last term, and we did receive that, and I have received that in other committees. It's just helpful and recognize that things happen. So not everybody's going to show up. And we also recognize that some, you know, on your list. So, but those things we've seen before, just so that we know who might be coming and are able to do some preparation. So I look forward to that discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Happy to have it. Absolutely. If there's nothing else, guys, I want to, as always, thank the clerk, the analysts, and please just pick up the phone as Mr. White just says. Just wanted to double check. Clerk's just asking me that we have an agreement that the 26th, 4 o'clock, March 26th, 4 o'clock deadline for witnesses for the next study. No objections? Seeing none. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to all the techs and the translators in Ottawa for helping us all be here. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.